Izuku Midoriya. He was born in a world that had superpowers, other known as quirks. Quirks are an extension of one's self. Quirks are something that everyone believes to be the most important and most potent part of society itself in this beautiful world that they know. Quirks are everything for heroes, everything for those who love heroes, and everything for society itself. So getting a good quirk is something that needs to happen. A good quirk will help you in the future. And that is exactly what Izuku is hoping for. He's hoping for a quirk that will be amazing. Maybe one just like All Might. All Might himself, strength, power, and just being the number one hero. That is what All Might, or that's what All Might stands for. And that's what Izuku wants to be. He wants to be the number one hero, like All Might. And of course, that is harder. That is easier said than done. It is no easy feat to just be like All Might. Frankly, for anybody. But it's okay. He's going to figure it out his own way. At the young age of only 4, Izuku would finally get his chance to see what his quirk is. And the reason why this would even happen is because when he got an odd cut one day, it would heal up in a matter of seconds. So after this revelation, Inko Midoriya would immediately take Izuku to the doctors. They want to know, what is this quirk? What is this power that he currently has? Is it some regenerative quirk? Is it some regen type of healing quirk? Well, when they arrive at the hospital, they really don't get that much information. It seems that Izuku does have some sort of hyper healing, but this hyper healing type of quirk doesn't really fit the mold of a regenerative quirk. It's kind of odd. It's not like it's just regen for himself or healing for himself. It seems outward. All of this weird or different like change in his body goes from even to his fingertips, goes from his chest to his fingertips to even his brain. It's definitely interesting to look at, especially in x-rays and diagnosis, and frankly they're not too sure where to go with it. But overall, it seems to be some sort of healing type of quirk, but they explain that he's going to have to find out for himself. It seems too complicated for them to understand, at least off the bat, but yeah, he'll have to basically learn on his own. In which Inko thought this would sort of be the case. Most quirks are like this, but it seems that Izuku's quirk is even more complex. But that's okay, it's alright overall, and Izuku at a young age might have some hurdles to jump through, but it's something for him to look forward to and something for him to become a good hero with. He even asks his mother if he can be a hero with a healing type of quirk, and she says of course. It might be a support, it might even be one of the main heroes, but he'll have to see in the near future. It's not something they can just predict right now and forever in the future. So Izuku takes this to heart and begins to try and work with his quirk in terms of healing, but it's kind of hard to do so. He would kind of walk around and look for broken trees or kind of badly decaying plants and try to heal them, because at the end of the day they are living things or living organisms, so he's able to actually heal them to a certain extent. So he'll use that and maybe even sometimes hurt animals, as long as the hurt animal isn't, a giant bear or something. So he kind of sticks to his own lane. He doesn't want to do anything crazy. Same thing with at school. Sometimes at school his friends would get maybe a little paper cut or something and he would learn to heal it. The more he does it, the more he can get a feeling for exactly how his healing quirk works. He of course doesn't want to hurt himself, that'd be kind of ridiculous, so he lets natural things happen. Even one time he got hit pretty hard and he was able to heal it off. It does drain some stamina, and these are all just very minor injuries, so they're easy to maintain and actually heal. But what does that mean for bigger injuries? What about a broken arm? Well, he's not exactly sure. but that's beyond the idea and that's beyond the point. His healing quirk is something to be adapted and is something to be used. But there are some kids in his class that feel that it is no quirk of a hero. And one of them, and the main person, is Katsuki Bakugou. Katsuki Bakugou believes that a healing quirk makes him basically a glorified nurse. Like, come on. He's really nothing to be compared in terms of, well, some people that have powerful quirks, like himself. Well, frankly, Bakugou has an explosion quirk. Izuku is nothing compared to him, especially in raw strength. Not even close. Izuku does kind of feel offended by this. I mean, he was friends with Bakugou for a long time, so the fact that he would freaking feel this way and the fact that he would act this way is something that really hurts Izuku's feelings. But at the same time, Izuku needs to go on with his life. Figure out what he wants to do in the near future, not worry about what Bakugou basically thinks of him. So he continues working on his craft, working really hard, but he actually does have friends in this scenario. It's not like he's some sort of loner. A nerd is definitely something he still is as well, and he continues to write in his journal about certain things, and even about past heroes that are completely injured or were out of commission because of, well, something that happened. And he thinks about the times that he's seen heroes get hurt and that he could have maybe even saved them if he was alive during that time. But he's not even sure. He doesn't know the limits to his quirks, and his quirk, throughout the years, he continues to just, well, develop it as much as possible. Izuku, though, would go on throughout the years and eventually would come to near the end of his middle school. At the end of middle school, he would be ready to basically take his advances to hopefully UA, but he knows that's going to be a bit of a struggle. His mother is transparent with him, especially with the way this day and age is. Well, quirks that are powerful in terms of raw strength are normally the ones that are more favored. So it's going to be difficult to get into UA, but Izuku doesn't care. He's going to try his hardest and absolutely give it his all to get to the point that he can maybe even get into UA, get into a high tier high school, and he'll follow his dreams to be a hero. Izuku truly believes that he can do this, and he knows that it's all going to start with his training. So he begins to ask his mother that if he can do more than what he's doing right now. She's a little confused and asks what he means by that. And obviously he answers. He asks his mother if he can enroll in some sort of maybe martial arts, something simple, and something just that would allow him to defend himself, in which she thinks that's a great idea. I mean, he can't just heal off everything and everyone forever, and he needs to be able to defend himself to get out of sticky situations, so she thinks it's a great idea. Maybe over the 10-month period leading up to the UA entrance exam, he'll get his shot to basically train and learn and develop, in which that's something Izuku's definitely interested in. Being that this is the last day of middle school, he thanks his mother for helping him out, and he heads off to the last day. When he arrives at his middle school, it seems that everyone is rowdy and ready to go. It seems that they're all excited, especially because the teacher walks in saying that he was going to give career aptitude tests, but he throws them all in the air and says that he knows they all want to be heroes. Heroes is something that is more or less a staple in this society. So when they all want to be heroes, this is no real surprise. And frankly, why would it be? They all want to be famous heroes and make tons of money. But very few of them will truly do that. Yes, there is a lot of people in the world that have quirks, but what happens when that quirk is not bad? It's basically a flip of a coin, maybe even a random number generator. It's really nothing to be, well, desired at the end of the day. Some people just get big hands. Some people have eyeballs that kind of pop out of their head. It's really all different and all random at the end of the day, based on genetics and also randomness in general. But with that said, they begin speaking, or the teacher begins talking about who's going where, and he says that Bakugou is trying for the entrance exam at UA, and on top of that, it seems that Izuku is as well. Of course, Bakugou immediately tells Izuku that he should just give up. There's no way he'll get into UA with just a healing quirk. There's just no chance in hell. In which Izuku doesn't take this that lightly, but he basically tells Bakugou that he'll take on that challenge and he'll make sure to advance. There are definitely some people in his class that believe that he can truly do that, but others are very skeptical as well. He doesn't have a powerful quirk, so could he really make it to UA with a quirk that's made to support? Well, I mean, as a regular hero and not a support hero, of course, they're skeptical. He'll definitely be able to make it as a support hero. I mean, it makes sense, right? And on top of that, he's extremely smart and always does a ton of note-taking. But can he make it as a true hero? After the day is said and done, Izuku continues out and begins to leave. Of course, Bakugou does his normal shtick, where he presses Izuku, telling him that he's the only one that will make it from this horrible middle school, and that he shouldn't even give it another thought. UA is impossible for someone like him. UA is impossible for Izuku. Izuku ignores him and begins to leave as he writes and continues to write in his journal about new things he's come up with. And he continues the long way to his home. But when he goes under a bridge, something terrifying would occur. Something truly terrifying. And that is the sludge villain. A manhole cover would open up and the sludge villain would come pouring out, and a terrifying creature would speak to Izuku, saying that he needs the kid's body. He needs to take him and get away from whatever is going on. All Might is coming for him, and he won't let All Might get him. Izuku gets attacked and he tries to get away, but unfortunately, he can't get away. He gets his foot grabbed and dragged toward the sludge villain as he gets engulfed, and Izuku continues to struggle more and more and more. But as he does this, his quirk begins to seep out and his aura begins to flare. It seems that this greenish and yellowish aura begins to surround Izuku as it surrounds him and the sludge villain as well. Izuku panics and continues to basically swell in terms of this aura as he feels his life fading slowly but surely. But just as he's about to do something, and just as it feels that his mind is going to go away and his aura is going to take over, one large voice could be heard with one phrase: "I am here." A gust of wind would come blasting through, smashing into the sludge villain, sending Izuku and the sludge villain into a wall. Izuku would slam his head as he passes out. He would be out for a little bit, but eventually would awaken, and All Might would question if the boy is okay. Izuku looks to see he has a couple scratches, and that's about it, and he'd clench his fist as the scratches and all of the wounds that he has, bruises and so on, would disappear and go away. Izuku says that he's fine, and asks what happened to that villain, and All Might says with another strong voice that the villain has been subdued as he points at the sludge that is everywhere. Izuku, after the mild shock that he just went through, he looks up to see that it's All Might. This is ridiculous. He's now freaking out. He's now fanboying over All Might, of course, asking for an autograph to see that he already has his autograph, which is not really an autograph, it's just All Might, but that's beyond the point. Izuku asks him a ton of questions, but during this time, All Might asks if he could help him clean up the sludge villain, in which he does just that. Izuku would pick up the sludge villain and put him into bottles, and would give them to All Might. All Might would then begin to answer some of his questions, but he would be on such limited time. Izuku would listen to All Might as he tells him that being a hero is so much more than just one's quirk, but if he does have a quirk like the one he has, something that's not built for fighting like All Might himself, he could truly still be a hero, even if that doesn't mean some main hero as he calls it, and if that means him being a support or some off-role type of hero, he's still a hero. And he's going to have more impact than he can possibly imagine if he utilizes his quirk to its fullest and doesn't worry about what people are to expect from him. All Might says his goodbyes and says that his quirk is very unique. The fact that he could heal and heal himself and maybe even others is something that would come in massive handy in the future, and that he should consider reaching for the stars, including UA. All Might would jump off as Izuku watches on as All Might sails away. Izuku is excited to hear something like that from his hero, but he gets this odd feeling as All Might basically jumps away or flies away. He can sense that All Might isn't healthy, or maybe hurts, injured. He's not sure. He's gotten this before from hospitals itself, people that have had cancer and people that have had massive injuries. It's as if they have this aura to them that signals as if they need help, that they need some sort of remedy. All Might has something very similar, but it's just clouded by the strength that he upholds, so it's lackluster in a way. He's confused. Maybe All Might is hurt, truly hurt. Izuku doesn't know, and he can't question it now because he's already gone. So he decides to head home, and he tells his mother what happened, of course, and his mother would freak out a little bit, but would realize Izuku is okay, and it seems like it all worked out for the best. The sludge villain is in captivity, but Izuku may or may not even see All Might again for a long time. At least until he goes to UA, or hopefully goes to UA. Izuku would continue training and begin going to his martial arts classes, learning how to defend himself and try and expand his knowledge as much as possible in terms of fighting. And Izuku would also work on his quirk to the best of his ability, but there's limitations on that. He can't really heal everything. I mean, he's not gonna hurt himself or hurt other people so that he can stretch out his quirk more and more. It just doesn't make sense logically, and there's nothing really he can do about that in general. With that said though, he would continue working and learning and trying to expand his quirk to the best of his abilities, and during this time, he would actually run across this old, kind of looking man. He looks like a skeleton, but he has yellow hair. He would begin speaking with the man, asking if he's okay. The man would say that he's just fine. He's a little hurt and not the best in general, but he still lives every day the best he possibly can. In which Izuku is impressed by hearing this. This man that looks kind of homeless, with a white baggy t-shirt, some ragged pants, and with yellow hair, seems to be pretty optimistic at his state. Izuku would continue looking at the man and would think, who is this really? The aura he's getting is so similar to something he's seen before. So similar. But what can it be? What is it? He's not sure. He can't get it in his head. He's not 100% sure to the idea who this guy is, but he tells him that he'll help him out here. As he puts his hand on the guy's shoulder, an aura begins to surround the man that's in front of him, seemingly slightly taking away some of his pain. Izuku says that he implemented some sort of healing. He isn't sure what's wrong with him, and that would be extremely difficult to basically look into. He would need to know exactly what's wrong and exactly how to heal him, but he hopes that he can take away some of the pain that he might be in and some of the things he's been dealing with. And when the man coughs, normally what he would cough up is blood, and when he coughs up, he doesn't cough up blood at all. He's confused. How is this even happening? The man coughs again and it's no blood. It might be temporary, and it might be only minor amounts of healing, but it seems like Izuku has definitely helped this man out quite a bit. Izuku waves him off and says that he apologizes he can't stay longer and speak with him. He's enjoyed the time speaking with him, but he has some training to do. He's looking to be the #1 hero, and training never stops for the future #1 hero. Izuku would run off and begin running around Dagobah Beach. He would begin sprinting around the beach until he's ready to go to his martial arts class. He would go to his martial arts class, learn new techniques, and learn how to defend himself to the best of his abilities. What he doesn't know is that this man that he met that seems to be homeless and old and hurt is actually All Might. He didn't even realize this, and the reason why the aura seemed so similar was because he's seen the aura before. that same aura that needed healing and that needed help was All Might. All Might needed help. All Might is shocked though. Throughout this time, he would go home and even look at the same wound that he got so long ago. It's still there. And don't get me wrong, it's not cured by any means and not healed by any means. But to a certain extent, it looks different. It looks as if it was slightly healed and helped just a little bit. And he feels stronger at that. All Might feels that he can go longer in terms of being or doing his hero work, which is a massive plus. He then thinks to himself that someone like that kid, like Izuku, may benefit from One for All greater than anybody. If he can heal himself, the progression that he would go through with One for All would be insane. He needs to talk to the boy. He needs to talk to him. But he doesn't even know where he is. Yeah, he worked out at Dagobah Beach one time. Doesn't mean he's going to be there every single time. He heard something about martial arts, but that's about it. He doesn't know where this guy is. He doesn't know where Izuku Midori is. On the other side of Japan, Izuku is training, working, and all he can think about is the fact that he wants to get into UA. Push-ups, sit-ups, and plenty of juice. That's all he can do, and that's he's going to work hard and make sure that he's ready for this UA entrance exam. But in terms of raw power, there's really no getting him ready for the entrance exam. There's no way. He doesn't know this yet, but he's going to have to destroy robots, and he's going to be nowhere near as powerful enough to destroy those said robots. With only 3 months left, he feels that he's prepared, but is he really prepared enough? Frankly, no, he's not. It's going to be difficult, especially because the way the UA entrance exam even works. But he's going to continue studying, continue getting ready, and continue progressing, and hopefully he'll be able to reach what he needs to reach. But with 1 month before the entrance exam, someone would approach Izuku. Someone would approach him and begin speaking with him. That old man, that same man that looked like homeless and so on, begins to ask him a bunch of questions as if he didn't know anything about Izuku. Asking him how he thinks he's going to fend off the villains, physically, mentally, and so on. What is he going to do when villains have strength? Izuku isn't sure. He doesn't know how to respond to this. And he tells the man that he knows that he lacks in strength. He knows this, but he's going to find a way. He's going to find a way to progress what he needs to progress and find a way to truly get further than he possibly could imagine. The man smiles slightly and says that he believes that to be so. And just as he does this, he bulks up into his big form. It's All Might. All Might says, "I am here," and introduces himself, saying that he's been hanging around a bit and he's been interested in Izuku. And he believes that Izuku could be the person that could be the next, successor to One for All. He explains everything you can possibly imagine, One for All, and how it works and what it is and so on. And he tells Izuku that he's the perfect person for it. Someone that's going to push himself to the limits. Someone that was going to go into the field of battle without strength, without power. He was going to go in with his quirk, a healing quirk, support everyone else, and come out on top. That's what Izuku's goal was, and his goal was to be the #1 hero. And All Might says he's going to give him that chance. He needs and he wants him to become that #1 hero. So he wants him to take on One for All. He's already strengthened his body to the point that he'll definitely be able to utilize it, at least after some training. But Izuku hears this and he shakes his head. He says no, not yet. He doesn't want One for All just yet. He knows that the entrance exam is going to be a hurdle, a massive one at that, something that he'll have to jump through and hope for the best. But he needs to prove it to himself that he can do this without help, that he can do this. He can get past the entrance exam and get in on his own merit, and then he'll accept One for All. He needs to prove it. And if he doesn't, then All Might should choose someone else to be the successor to One For All. Should choose someone else. And All Might smiles. With a large grin on his face, All Might says that he knew he would say that. The determination on the boy's face is unwavering. But then he knows that Izuku can do it. He explains to Izuku exactly what the entrance exam is. It's going to be tough for someone like him. But if he figures everything out, and he knows, and he figures any way to defeat all the way through the entrance exam, well, he will forever strive to overcome a challenge that's in front of him. UA entrance exam. That is next. Izuku looks forward to it, and he tells All Might that he's going to make everyone and everybody proud. All Might says that he'll be watching, and that he can't wait to see what Izuku can do. Izuku Midoriya. It's time for the one with the healing quirk to take on the UA entrance exam. A month would pass on, and the rejection of One For All, or at least deciding not to take it on just quite yet, may be a massive challenge and hurdle for Izuku, but he'll see when he arrives at the UA entrance exam. He walks up to the staircase and begins to climb. Nervousness begins to overwhelm him within his stomach, as if he's going to stand in front of everybody and give a speech. Izuku would walk forward and eventually walk through the doors, and his stomach would drop when he has to sit next to the one and only Katsuki Bakugou. Bakugou would annoy him the entire time. Frankly, Bakugou would tell him that he should never have came and that he's useless. With a healing quirk only, there's no way he can make it into UA. Izuku doesn't say a word and continues with his head forward. He focuses, and after taking the written exam, he listens to what Present Mike has to say. He says, everybody listen up. Little listeners need to listen, because these are the things that are going to happen in the entrance exam. He begins explaining the 1-point, the 2-point, and the 3-point robots, including many other things as well. Eventually, a blue-haired boy would stand up and speak about how he skipped the 0-pointer. But Present Mike says he never did, he just didn't have enough time to explain. He says to avoid the 0-pointers, to not worry about them, that they are giant robots, nothing to be really controlled, and nothing to be used as points, and he believes that they should just avoid them and stay safe. Izuku listens on and is ready to walk forward to that gate. He stands in front of the gate as Present Mike begins to speak to them. But when the gates swing open, Izuku steps forward and begins running. He looks for the weakest robot he possibly can find, and he tries to punch through it, destroy it. But he can't. He's too weak. He tries to grab a lamppost, trying to break it in half as he swings at the robot, and the robot blocks it, but is slightly damaged. Izuku doesn't know what to do. What is he supposed to do? He can't break it. Maybe he should have took on One For All early. Maybe he really needs assistance that badly. As he thinks this to himself, as he begins to believe that he needs assistance, that's it. Assistance. There's more to the entrance exam. All Might gave him a clue. Without even... Maybe All Might helped him after all. He begins to run around, and the other people there, well, they're fighting robots, but he finds those who are struggling with destroying robots, or at least to an extent struggling. He would help them out, and he would reach out his hand, healing them. But what he realized during this training is he not only can heal people, but temporarily he can boost their own power. As he does this, a blue beam of light begins to stretch out from his arm as it surrounds somebody, and they instantly destroy a 1-pointer. He's completely shocked. This no-name person that really isn't that strong was able to blast through a 1-point robot easily. Of course, Izuku can't help him the entire time, so the chances of him getting in are probably slim, but Izuku continues to dash around using his aura and the strength he currently has to basically heal and support everybody around. Support, heal, damage boost, everybody he possibly can see. It seems as if he's able to support and help everybody around. He smiles, thinking that this has to be part of it. He has to get a good score because of helping out. Maybe that's part of the whole regimen. This is hero work at the end of the day. Heroes aren't just destroying things. Heroes aren't just defeating villains. There's helping people, helping other heroes. There's helping citizens. Well, this has to be it. This is his way. This is how he's going to pass the UA entrance exam. He continues to think this as he darts around, helping, healing, and power boosting anybody he could possibly see. But this does drain his stamina, making him extremely tired at the end of the day. And eventually, the 0 Point robot would arrive. A giant robot, hulking robot, begin walking forward. But at the end of the day, it seems that everyone is safe. Everyone is out of harm's way. Yes, even Ochako Uraraka, because Izuku has helped everyone, healed everyone, restored people's staminas, and Ochako would never be put in the situation that she was in. So the 0 Point robot comes up empty in terms of a threat level, and eventually the intercom would come on to say that the UA entrance exam is over. It's wrapped up and done. But the real question is, was this enough? Was Izuku actually on the right path in terms of the idea that helping people in the entrance exam would allow him to pass? Will this prove to him, or will this prove to himself that he deserves One for All and deserves the assistance of the one and only #1 hero All Might? Well, you'll have to find out in the next part of What If Deku Had a Healing Quirk. The entrance exam is over, and Izuku seemingly has made his point. He was beneficial to everybody around during that UA entrance exam. Was this enough for himself and to prove to All Might that he 100% deserves One for All? Well, soon he'll find out. And very, very soon he'll find out. Because he'll get a message on his phone asking him to go to Dagobah Beach as soon as possible. Izuku would head over and he would arrive at Dagobah Beach. And when he would arrive, All Might, the one and only, will be standing right there. All Might tells him that he deserves One for All. He believed that he deserved it before, and even now he believes that he deserves it even more. Someone like Izuku can be even better than All Might. He can support people on top of being able to protect them. He can do far more than anyone could possibly imagine. Now, with that said, All Might smiles and says, "Eat this," as he rips out a piece of his hair. Izuku's weirded out by this, but he then gets explained, or has an explanation, that basically he needs to eat All Might's DNA to, well, pass on One for All. He decides to do this, eating it and being grossed out immensely, but after about an hour or two, it would eventually settle to the point that One for All would enter his system. But this is where the true training would begin. He has about 2 weeks before his acceptance, or at least the acceptance he doesn't even know about, but frankly it should be kind of a bit of spoilers when All Might himself is willing to give One for All to him, as if he knows that Izuku's going to get in. With that said though, Izuku begins his training for the next 2 weeks or so, training as hard as possible, trying to activate One for All without utterly shattering his body, but it's very confusing, especially with 2 different quirks, conflicting quirks at that, but Izuku feels the need to push even harder. Eventually, he begins to settle in to the idea of using One for All. They're not 2 coexisting quirks. He needs to realize that. These 2 quirks are one in its own. One for All combines in a way with one's quirk, and when it's passed on, it must do the same. Izuku believes that there might have been One for All users that have other quirks that combined it with One for All. Of course, he won't be able to use them. He doesn't even know about any of the other wielders of One for All. Not really, at least. So he begins to focus as hard as possible, focusing the energy through his body, more and more and more. After weeks of training this, he can finally feel the surge of energy, the surge of power. He begins to move his body as if it feels as if he's accelerated 100 times over. He's moving at insane speeds. But the issue with this is he can't maintain it. As he punches the air, he sends a giant shockwave, but it shatters multiple bones in his arm. It completely leaves his arm limp, and Izuku is hurting as One for All deactivates. He realizes something. he needs to use One For All at a very minimal scale. He can't be using his healing quirk every single time he hurts himself. That's just going to drain him even more. But he does just that, healing himself up as he drains some of his stamina, but luckily he's able to recover relatively quickly and doesn't feel too groggy or anything like that. He would sit there and remember what he learned in his martial arts classes about meditation and also about calming one's mind, something that many people actually need to realize in martial arts. It seems that Izuku was pretty keen on basically keening in on this because he does have a relative calm mind. He tries to think things logically, but he does have a tendency of overcomplicating things. So martial arts definitely helped him out a far bit. He would sit there and wait for a little while as he would calm his mind, and as it seemed as if he used One For All at such a small percentage that it didn't really feel like there was that big of a difference. There was enough to the point that he felt that he was gaining some strength, but after a while he would drop out once again, not being able to hold One For All as always. All Might would tell him that he's doing a heck of a job, accelerating past far what All Might would have done and could have done way back when he got One For All. But he tells Izuku that he needs his break, that he'll be getting a letter very soon from UA, and even if he can't use One For All going into basically starting UA, everything will be fine. That's why UA exists. He's going to train, he's going to learn, he's going to get strong. Izuku has potential beyond even All Might himself, and All Might makes that abundantly clear, especially with his quirk. His body is built for One For All. At the end of the day, his body is adjusted to a healing factor, a factor that is based on support. He assumes that his body is built in a certain way that would allow One For All to basically mold a lot better within himself, even though he does have, well, another quirk maybe that is conflicting, quote unquote, with it. All Might tells him to take the rest of the day off, go home, eat some good food, and get ready for a letter that's going to come. And that letter, the next day, would arrive. And All Might himself would be in that letter, telling Izuku that he did a heck of a job, that he found something that nobody else did, and supporting everybody on the field that day got him a ton of points. Actually, so much so that they, well, made him the #1 student in the entrance exam. It's hard to evaluate exactly what the hero points would entail and what the kind of saving and rescue points would entail, but he did so much during that time, healing, assisting, that there was no way that they couldn't deny him that #1 spot, which is fantastic. All Might smiles and says he's proud of the boy young Midoriya, and tells him he'll see him soon at UA. Izuku smiles and is happy because he did that. He did that without One For All. He did that without extra help, extra strength. He did that in a way on his own. He was able to push past the expectations. He was able to bring himself to the limit. But now he's been gifted with power that he never even knew he would have. Power to flatten buildings and power to flatten mountains. Izuku wants to take on this new challenge, and he knows this will be the path to the #1 hero. He would await the first day of UA, and when he would get dropped off, he would see the giant school that's in front of him. He would begin walking to his classroom to see that the door is ginormous. He would open that said door and walk in. When he would walk in, he would see Bakugou arguing with someone by the name of Tenya Ida with blue hair. Izuku would just sit down, and Bakugou would be shocked to see that he's there, asking how he got in, yelling at him, telling him that he must have cheated, he must have did something. But of course, the blue-haired boy by the name of Tenya Ida would get in front of Bakugou, telling him that nobody would have cheated to get in. That's impossible anyways. UA has a pretty flawless record. Izuku just ignores the conflict that's currently going on and ignores Bakugou, same as he's really done all his life. Bakugou is no concern to him at this moment, and he knows that whatever's to come is going to be under his control. So he awaits the arrival of his teacher, and Shota Aizawa would walk in. Aizawa would tell the class to calm down, especially the rowdy Bakugou that's up out of his seat trying to get into the face of Izuku. Aizawa tells him to sit down, be quiet, and listen. He tells everybody that today they're going to be doing a quirk assessment. They're going to be assessing everybody's quirk and see how far they've come so far without proper training. And a couple people ask, well, what about the orientation? But Aizawa says that they've been beloved and they've been more or less hyped up their entire life. They don't need more positive reinforcement. If you need more positive reinforcement, you should go home now to your mother. Aizawa tells them all to head outside and that to get ready and put on a PE uniform. So that's exactly what everyone does, putting on their PE uniforms, and when they arrive, they begin to see that Aizawa has a bunch of things set up, starting with the ball throw. Aizawa explains exactly what's going to happen, and he asks the number 1 student of the entry exam to step up. Bakugou looks around to see who got number 1, because somehow he didn't. He got number 2. Izuku would step up, and Aizawa would slightly smirk as he throws the ball toward him. Izuku catches the ball and walks up. Bakugou loudly calls out to Izuku asking how this is possible. He doesn't even have a strength quirk. He doesn't even have a powerful quirk. He's just a support hero, or a wannabe support hero. Everyone is shocked to hear this, but they do realize who he is. It's the same kid that was dashing around, healing and basically supporting everybody. They would talk about how he replenished many people's staminas and even made their quirks more powerful. Izuku slightly smiles and waves them off, saying that he found a different way to get in the entrance exam, and it seems like UA likes that version of getting points better. And Aizawa would smirk as well, as saying that it's one creative idea to get points, a risky one at that, because there was no clarification of there being hero points, but it's impressive nonetheless. Aizawa says that's the last thing he'll say complimenting the kid, because he still's got a long way to go. Izuku nods as he begins to try and channel One for All throughout his body, being able to use about 2 to 3% as he launches the ball, but it doesn't go that far. 2 to 3%, as we all know, is not that strong, and he hasn't really been training with it that long at all. He didn't start with it after or before the 10 months. His body is in peak shape, but he hasn't been able to learn how to utilize One for All, especially in percentages, at least not until the very end and basically a day or two before UA. So 2 to 3% feels about right, but his power would accelerate very soon. He would launch the ball and it would go about 150 to 200 meters, being pretty darn far nonetheless. Aizawa nods and thinks that's great. He goes to Izuku goes to line back up, and people question why that was so weak. Izuku can't necessarily support himself. Yes, I mean, they don't know he has One for All and this strength enhancement quirk in a way, but Izuku can't support himself. It's not like he can damage or power boost himself so that he launches the ball further. Maybe in the future, but he's never really approached that idea. He's always thought about his quirk as a support quirk and trying to assist or help everybody else. Izuku would await more people to arrive and walk up, Bakugou launching the ball 900 meters or so, and everybody thinks that this is going to be such a fun way of approaching a quirk assessment, and Aizawa doesn't like the sound of that. He tells them that this is not going to be fun. This is not built for fun, and this is not, going to be an activity for fun. He tells them all that he's going to up the stakes now, that whoever gets last place will be expelled. Everyone's shocked, terrified, and they just don't know what to look forward to. As everybody finishes up their tests, the ball throw, the speed test, or like the 40-yard-ish dash, and the grip strength, and the footwork, and the side steps, everything, Izuku would sit somewhere in the top 10. I wouldn't say he would be even in the top 5, frankly, maybe sitting around 7 or 8. Izuku might be strong, but 2 to 3% of One for All wouldn't really get him insane scores, and he would be a lot weaker than some of the people that are there. In the overall grand scheme of things, he might get pretty high or pretty moderate to high scores, but there's a lot of people that would get really high scores on one thing that would kind of carry them through just a little bit. With that said though, Izuku would still do fairly well. He would be pretty close to the top 5, 6, 7, but he would do well overall and would be pretty safe from being expelled. Aizawa would see that Invisible Girl is the one that got last, and he would expel her, quote unquote. But we all know Aizawa's little tricks, and it's just to basically scare everybody. He would tell her to go to the office, as he would be right behind her very soon. And Izuku does feel kind of bad, but eventually he would realize that it's not necessarily expulsion, it was actually not that at all, frankly. But nonetheless, Izuku and the rest of the class would be dismissed, as though the idea and the weight of somebody being expelled is currently on their mind. They would leave, go home, will take a rest, and then come back the next day, and Aizawa would walk into the class with Invisible Girl. And it was just a point he wanted to make, and a point that he can get rid of any of them whenever he wants. There is no restrictions, he can do whatever he wants, so they better be trying their best no matter what. That's a threat. Izuku kind of smiles at this, reminding him of some of the teachers he's actually been around in terms of the martial arts over the last 10 months or so. Izuku is also excited to see what is to come next. What are they going to do in terms of training? And the first thing they're actually going to be doing is with the one and only All Might. All Might would bust through the door and say his signature, "I am here." Everybody would be shocked, as Aizawa would say that they're doing hero training, which is a little bit different than normal training, but All Might would explain more once they get on their hero outfits. Izuku leaves, and he begins to look at the outfit that he currently has, being similar to the one in canon, but more suited for more or less supports, or him supporting others, and also protection. So it would be more like a more advanced one, and he would allow the support people to actually make him one instead of, his mother making it, which I didn't really understand in the first place, but that's beyond the point. Izuku would arrive next to All Might, as All Might would then wait for the entire class to arrive, and he would explain exactly what's going to happen. Heroes versus villains. Now this is what's going to happen. Heroes versus villains training, quote unquote, will involve 2 versus 2. Heroes on one side, villains on the other, and it will start with a building. The villains will be protecting a bomb. This bomb, if touched by the heroes, will automatically seize the bomb, and the heroes will automatically win. If the time runs out, the villains win. If the villains capture both the heroes, the villains win. Only way the heroes can win is if they touch the bomb. All Might would then proceed to call out the first 2 groups. First group, hero group, Izuku Midoriya and Ochaku Uraraka. Second group, villain group, Katsuki Bakugou and Tenya Ida. Tenya Ida and Katsuki Bakugou would be let out first, and Bakugou is itching and chomping at the bit to get to Izuku. Ochaku would ask Izuku what their plan should be, and Izuku explains that with her quirk and what he's seen so far from the entrance exam and also the quirk assessment, they should be able to do recon real well. And she says that she can't really do that. I mean, she understands what he's saying, floating around and so on. It's kind of like flight. But Izuku says not to worry, that he'll assist her with his quirk. Izuku reminds her that he does have a support quirk, like most people have been saying and how he said before. So he'll power her up, they'll fly around, they'll search for the bomb, and they'll quickly win. Izuku says that he doesn't really want to have conflict with Katsuki Bakugou, and frankly, it would just get him even more mad if he avoided it. Izuku would slightly laugh, and Ochaku would find this kind of amusing as well. Izuku seeming like kind of a pacifist in a way, but Izuku also doesn't necessarily want to fight for no reason. Especially with his martial arts classes, he could probably most likely take on Bakugou on top of One For All. But he doesn't really want to do that. His quirk, originally, obviously his original quirk, his healing quirk, is built around making things better, making things easier, making things more efficient, helping others. So why would he want to conflict with a student, or with Bakugou in this instance, just out of brute force. There's really no reason to do that. So he decides that once the time runs out, him and Ochako, a powered up Ochako, would fly around basically from the side of the building, every single row, while Bakugou is scorching around with his explosions looking for him. They'll bust through the window that they currently find with the bomb behind it. They would find the bomb, walk in, touch the bomb, and it's over. Tenya Ida couldn't even react, couldn't even realize quick enough that Izuku and Ochako Uraraka were at the window that was there. And it's over. Just like that. That heroes versus villains training over in a matter of a minute, maybe even less. All Might on the intercom says that the heroes have won, Bakugou being pissed, seething with anger as Ochako and Izuku head back down. Izuku's a little winded. I mean, come on. He's power boosting and helping and supporting a Quirk that's already kind of unstable in a way, especially because Ochako isn't very good with her Quirk at this moment either, and it makes her extremely sick. So power boosting it and then also stabilizing her definitely put a bit of a drain on him, but at the same time it was very efficient and very productive in terms of what they did. Izuku asks if she's okay, and she says that she's never been better as Izuku throws up on the side of the building. Ochako asks if he's okay, and Izuku says he's just not used to power boosting and maintaining somebody with a Quirk like hers. He definitely has a taste of her own medicine now, understanding how her Quirk works. He laughs it off though and says that it was definitely an interesting experience, and Ochako kind of smiles and says that she agrees. They head back to All Might, and All Might says that that was a heck of a job, that Ochako and also Izuku had a foolproof plan, and it was done like heroes. Or just cut out the middleman. You don't need to fight, or if you don't need to fight, you don't have to fight. So that's exactly what they did. They cut out the middleman, found the bomb, and got it done and dusted, just like that. That's what real heroes need to do. If you can avoid conflict and basically subdue whatever you need to subdue, that's what you should do, and that's where you should go about. In terms of if you have to fight, then of course you have to fight. But it seems that Izuku and Ochako knew the assignments, and they approached it exactly how they should have. Something that even true heroes here, or even real heroes, quote unquote, that are in the field right now, don't even understand themselves. Ochako and Izuku obviously get their quote unquote flowers, and Bakugou and Tenya, more Bakugou, are extremely mad. Bakugou is livid, yelling at Izuku, saying that they need to fight, that he's earned that fight, and that he wants to show that he's a weakling. And Izuku shrugs and says that he is a weakling. All he can do is heal. All he can do is support. A support hero is he. He laughs as he walks away, and All Might kind of laughs as well, thinking that Izuku's very calm, at least right now, under pressure, and also calm in the face of someone like Bakugou, because he is frightening. With that said, the rest of the UA class, or the class 1A, finishes up their hero stuff, or their hero training, and all of them go. And Izuku is impressed by a bunch of the people, especially Todoroki. His Quirk is insane. He was able to freeze the entire building, and he assumes that it's not only the only Quirk he has, he probably has a fire side. Izuku can actually tell. It's kind of odd though. It's like this aura in a way that he can feel, and he can feel this weird aura coming from Todoroki, as if he's scarred. I mean, outside of his face, of course. With that said though, he doesn't want to pry. He doesn't know Todoroki like that, and he'll be here if he might ask some questions here and there, but he doesn't want to pry too much, because then that might lead to some conflict he kind of doesn't want to deal with. With that said though, everyone else finishes up, and class 1A seems to be done with their hero training. After the day is over and the next day would approach, Aizawa would explain to everybody that they will be doing some more training for rescue training. Now, rescue training is a lot different, especially in this regard. Rescue training is going to involve, well, going over to the USJ. The USJ is run by by Pro Hero 13. Pro Hero 13 kind of teaches them what they need to do during certain rescue situations, and so on and so forth. Aizawa would tell all of them to head out to the buses, as they're going to be heading over to the USJ right now. As they're on the buses, everyone begins to speak about different quirks, about who they think is the strongest and who they think is the best, at least in terms of quirks. The argument is really between Bakugou and Todoroki, even though there are a couple people there, like Ochako, who argue that Izuku's quirk might genuinely be the best, and they've seen it. And some people there as well, they vouch for it, especially since some of them have gone through the entrance exam. They vouch for the idea that Izuku's quirk might actually be the best, because frankly, Izuku's quirk may be a support type of quirk and may assist people, but it just would make all the other quirks that much stronger. He's really never dealt with, or no one's ever dealt with someone like this and never have met someone like this. They didn't even know someone like a support type of quirk hero could even exist like this. Like, he doesn't even use gadgets to help other people. He literally uses his own quirk. So it's pretty mind-boggling in a way that he's able to support people in the way he does. But overall, in terms of raw power, Todoroki or Bakugou is the way to go in terms of the strength of Quirk. But just as they're finishing up the conversation, Aizawa tells them all to be quiet because they're finally arrived at the USJ. They all get out and they're greeted by Pro Hero 13, in which Ochako Uraraka proceeds to fangirl a little bit. But that's completely fine. They all walk in and they all begin to listen as she explains more and more. Izuku, though, would get a weird feeling in the pit of his stomach. It's as if danger was being sensed, but it's more like being sensed via his healing quirk. He's able to sense when people are hurt, sense when people are in need, and, well, sense when all of them are in danger. So when things begin to flare off in his quirk, and he begins to hear all of these signs as if something big is coming, he looks toward Aizawa, and he begins to tell him something in silence, more or less walking over and whispering toward him, and Aizawa tells them all that they need to back up. But just as they do, a portal would open up at the center of the USJ. It's too late. There is no getting out right now, and there is no stopping this invasion. At least there's no preventing it from happening entirely. Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and many other villains that are unknown, all kind of from the streets and so on, are now pouring out of portals. Izuku stares on as he's in complete shock. First time seeing some actual villains, outside, of course, the sludge villain attack. Aizawa tells Pro Hero 13 to watch the kids and that he'll handle the group of villains. He dives forward as Izuku watches on. Izuku's in shock to see how well Aizawa can keep up and how well Aizawa can really fight off all these villains. Izuku tells Pro Hero 13 that they can stop this. They can put this to a halt. They gotta be ready. He tells her that immediately he points toward Kurogiri, saying he's a big issue. Pro Hero 13 nods, saying that she understands that, and they all have to be patient. Don't do anything drastic. But just as Kurogiri basically appears in front of them, Pro Hero 13 gets ready to use her quirk. But as she does, or is about to, two dumb kids hop in front of her. Bakugou and Kirishima. Izuku would quickly try to react, power boosting both of them immediately, as the explosion that Bakugou would shoot out would actually hit the guard that is actually protecting Kurogiri's armor at this moment. Izuku is shocked to see this, and he looks toward Pro Hero 13. Kurogiri would react quick enough, though, and transport both Bakugou and Kirishima somewhere else, and would try to transport the other kids as well. But he's already slightly hurt. Izuku helped Bakugou actually injure him, at least to a certain extent. Izuku looks forward to see that Pro Hero 13 is about to use her quirk as well. She uses it to try and basically suck in Kurogiri into her black hole quirk. But there's worry in this. Izuku would see that out of nowhere, a portal would slowly be opening up behind her. Izuku would kick her out of the way as it would stop the black hole Quirk, but it would actually shoot it back toward, well, Pro Hero 13. But luckily she was out of the way, and it would actually get shot right back toward Kurogiri in a weird way. But it doesn't kill him, doesn't hurt him, doesn't stop him, and everybody else gets basically swallowed up in the portals and sent off into different directions. But luckily, Pro Hero 13 wasn't extremely injured. Izuku would immediately plop into the water and would look around to see a shark-like creature charging toward him. But luckily, out of nowhere, a tongue gets wrapped around him and he gets thrown up on a ship. Now, they're in a odd spot. Surrounded by these villains, Izuku doesn't know what to do. But luckily, he has two other heads there, or more like one other head with Tsuyu, and they begin to brainstorm what they need to do, leading to them kind of doing something very similar to what they did in canon. But Izuku is able to actually kind of make Tsuyu a lot stronger so that she can jump off a lot further as well, and Izuku would make a bit of a whirlpool using One for All. They're able to get off the ship with relative ease, but when they look up, there's one thing that's going to bother Izuku. This creature, a creature by the name of a quote-unquote Nomu, is staring down Aizawa. That creature is terrifying. He looks at him as if Izuku can't tell if he's alive, if he's dead, if he's even living in general. What is that thing? It's a monster. Izuku can sense so many different things off of him. What's happening? What's even going on? Izuku is shocked, terrified. He's never seen something like this before. But he'll have to get rid of that terrified look because the Nomu is starting to move. Charging toward Aizawa, Izuku needs to do something. And what will he do? Well, you'll have to find out on the next part of What If Deku Had a Healing Quirk. Izuku Midoriya and Class 1A are still within the USJ. And Izuku is staring down this monster, this freak of nature, other known as a Nomu. And this monster is terrifying, and it's about to hurt Aizawa. Izuku, without even thinking and without even contemplating at all, would charge forward and more or less tackle the Nomu to the side using One for All at a pretty decent margin, being that of about 5 to 7%. But it barely even nudges the Nomu. He gets back to Aizawa as he grabs Aizawa running away as the Nomu tries to keep up, hot on the trail. Izuku continues to try and heal Aizawa, trying to get him in a state where he can move on his own, in which luckily he can get him to that point. Aizawa is able to escape, and Izuku slides out of harm's way and begins to look toward the other heroes, or at least Aizawa and Pro Hero 13. But there's not much they can really do. This, at this point, is kind of out of their hands. Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and the Nomu may be too much for all of them. Izuku decides that he'll step up to the plate and he'll try his best. Now this right here may be the first actual challenge that he's ever truly gone through. Izuku would stand his ground with a Nomu that is arguably actually far above his strength level. Izuku would clash with it, but he can feel that his bones are cracking. But just as they crack, they get filled in and healed once again. Izuku tries to avoid as much as possible, trying to amplify himself more and more. Do anything. 10%, 15% of One for All. It's hurting his body, it's aching, and it feels like it's tearing him apart. A percentage he's not used to. Izuku doesn't know what to do. He feels that the only way to win this, well, is to go 100%. But it will shatter his bones to pieces. So what does this mean? Why? If he does this, it could really, really go bad. It could truly go off the rails for him and his team, or him and Class 1A. He decides to step on the gas as immediately he feels this power surging throughout him, 100% of One for All, and as he's about to charge forward, the doors behind him swing open. Finally, he is here. All Might, without a word, comes charging forward, smashing the Nomu in the face as he gets sent flying. Izuku smiles, saying that it took him long enough. He begins to laugh, All Might scoffing at the fact that Izuku couldn't hold out any longer than that. Izuku shakes his head, and a smile does not leave his face, because they know this fight is over. Because All Might begins to smash into the Nomu as Izuku puts out one hand and an aura begins to channel around All Might. This harsh yellow aura sparks like crazy as if it's boosting All Might's strength by a percentage. It seems so strong, so powerful. All Might blasts the Nomu in the face so hard that there is no absorption, there is no friction, there is no stopping every single punch. All Might sends the Nomu into the wall as he beats the Nomu so bad that it feels as if the Nomu is just mush, launching the Nomu out of the USJ as he stares down Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Shigaraki is shocked, terrified. No, this isn't real. You're fake. You're not real. They told me that you weren't that strong anymore. Of course, Izuku smiles. The contemplation, the terrified aspects of Shigaraki are making Izuku realize that the villains thought far different things than what they ran into. Shigaraki and Kurogiri would disappear. Within a portal, they would be gone in a matter of seconds. All Might and everyone else seems to be safe, actually far better off than in canon. Izuku walks over to All Might and pats him on the back and asks if he needs to get out of here as soon as possible. But All Might shakes his head. He says he feels stronger than ever. Outside of the power boosting that he was getting, he feels even more healed. He tells Izuku that they need to speak very, very soon, and they need to speak about this. Of course, everybody is evacuated out of the USJ, and everyone is brought out back to the UA High School. After that all is said and done, Izuku meets All Might in an office as they begin to speak about what occurred. Izuku speaks about Shigaraki, about whatever those villains wanted, and it seems like they wanted All Might dead, but they believed him to be far weaker than what he truly was. Izuku kind of understands what All Might has to say about what exactly occurred, and he explains. All Might explains that Izuku's powers have slowly but surely been healing him. Yes, this injury is major, but every time Izuku has used his quirk on All Might, or used it in general around All Might, it has healed him slowly but surely. All Might tells him that his powers, combined with One for All, have amplified things beyond imagination. All Might then lifts his shirt up slightly to show his ribcage. Of course, Izuku is shocked to see the damage that is there, but All Might says that that damage was 10 times worse, at least, before he met Izuku. And that shocks Izuku to his core. But the only thing is All Might is still running on fumes. He's still running on the last embers of One for All. But All Might says that's fine. The only reason why it was so difficult in the first place is because he was going to run on the last embers of One for All. On top of that, he was extremely injured. But now, he's nowhere near that injury. He feels better, stronger, faster. Now that is something All Might wouldn't even believe he would be hearing and saying. Izuku says that he's thrilled to hear this. I mean, All Might is his role model, is his basically person that he looks up to, his statue, his number one hero. That's the person he wants to look up to, and it's great to hear that he's feeling better. And All Might says that Izuku may truly be the perfect person for this quirk, may truly be the perfect person to take the mantle of number one hero someday. Izuku is happy to hear this, but he knows he has a long way to go, which is completely fine. He understands this, and he's going to thrive off of that. All Might explains that he wants Izuku to continue to heal him. Maybe it would get to the point where he can truly use One for All at a pretty high output, even though the last embers are just within him. And he tells Izuku to keep training, work on everything as one. One for All is now his, and that quirk has combined with One for All itself. It's all one quirk now, Izuku. He begins to explain this as Izuku understands. He says he's going to continue training and continue working hard. All Might is happy to hear this because the next test is incoming, and that is the UA Sports Festival. The UA Sports Festival is the next step in Izuku's ascension, in which will be coming up right now. Izuku is going to be against the world. The UA Sports Festival is something that is perfect to get your name out there. So if Izuku wants to do just that, he'll be able to. And it's a great start because the person that got the number 1 in the entrance exam will be doing a bit of a speech. Izuku walks up and begins to talk about how he didn't rely on raw strength to get to where he is. He's relied on his wits, his technique, and also helping others. It might seem insane, but he got the number 1 in the entrance exam without really defeating any robots. And it might sound crazy, but he's going to win this, and he promises to do so. He's developed far past that entrance exam Izuku, and he's going to show everybody what he can do, and they will all promise to entertain throughout the entirety of the UA Sports Festival. Everybody is excited, roaring at the fact that Izuku got in basically without even destroying a robot. He just supported people, a true hero's work. And Midnight begins to speak about how inspirational it is, but then talks about the event that's to come, the obstacle course race. With everybody lined up and ready to go, Izuku knows exactly what needs to be done. He'll use a percentage of One for All, about 5%, to get ahead and eventually and hopefully pass up everybody. He activates 5% of One for All as he charges forward as Midnight calls them to go. He blitzes through the first part of the obstacle course race, which is a very narrow hallway, but other than that, it was very easy. Next up would be giant robots. Everybody would hold their breath, especially as somebody that didn't destroy a single robot back then, but he's able to slide through the legs, dodge the robots, and relatively just blitz through faster than anybody else could keep up. Izuku would continue to run as fast as possible, with Todoroki, Bakugou, Tenyida, and many others hot on his trail. Izuku would follow the ropes across the next obstacle, as finally, with Bakugou, Todoroki, and all them on his trail, he arrives at the minefield. The minefield is something that's going to be difficult, but he has an interesting idea. He decides that he's going to try his best to blitz forward, try his best to basically go through it. But Todoroki and many others behind him believe that its best course of action is to basically just skate through as fast as possible. Todoroki would use his ice to make a path for everybody, but luckily he can control it, so it'd be a lot quicker. Bakugou, on the other hand, can just fly over the bombs, which makes his life a lot easier. And Izuku has an idea. He's been trying something, and something with All Might actually allowed it to stick. This idea that all of this is one quirk, his healing quirk, his one for all quirk, and whatever else is to come, it's all one. Izuku thinks about this as he watches as Bakugou flies across the minefield about to win, and he focuses. He's healed people. He's power boosted people. He's shielded, protected. Now, what about a little bit more? A connection with somebody via healing might allow him to. He focuses and he claps his hands. And as he does, he swaps places with Bakugou, hitting a mine as he blasts forward in front of Todoroki. And he's shocked. I didn't think that was going to work. He activates One for All once again as he dashes through the finish line. And he's won. Bakugou comes in third and he's pissed. How the hell did you do that, you damn nerd? Bakugou is livid, pissed at Izuku. Izuku doesn't even know. He looks at his hands and is shocked. He just transported both of them or swapped places. That is some groovy stuff right there. Izuku shocked himself. It's as if he's trading places to basically save someone's life. He felt something within, as if there was a connection with the people that he heals. It's weird. He's kind of at a loss for words. Everyone asks him what happened. What did he do? That was insane. Did he just move fast? Did he just teleport? Izuku just doesn't even know. He has no idea. Bakugou scoffs at the fact that Izuku is getting all this attention, and all the crowd is shouting his name, shouting Midoriya and Midoriya over and over again. Izuku has made some leaps and has jumped over a lot of the people around him. People have no idea that he was gifted one for all, but it's pretty obvious that Izuku has made utilization of this quirk far greater than anybody else could have, at least so far. Izuku's next task would be the Cavalry Battle. But this, ironically enough, would be extremely easy and in the favor of Izuku. Yeah, he might have the 10 million point ban or 1 million point whatever, but people would want to go with him. Strong people. People that would be able to utilize their quirks to fend off anybody. On top of that, Izuku can power boost everybody with him. To say that this would be easy would be an understatement. But for simplification, let's just say that he's with Ochaku Uraraka. Power boosting her would allow them to levitate, control levitate actually, and do it for a while. On top of that, you add Tokiyami with Dark Shadow power boosted. Tokiyami would easily be able to shield them from anything. Even his resistance to high tendencies of light would kind of be negated, but would not overgrow himself to the point that he would lose control. And more people would be power boosted in strength. The only person that really wouldn't is Mei Hatsume. I mean, obviously she's just a support girl with really no quirk. I guess she can see farther, something like that. But it's an easy breezy, lemon squeezy ride to the finals, or at least the final event. Everybody in his group passes. They don't even lose a headband, and more or less the same people pass as well. Bakugou's group, Todoroki's group, and it's now time for the next event. And this is what everyone has been waiting for. The 1 versus 1 event. 1 versus 1s may not more or less tell you much, but they tell you who's stronger in 1 versus 1 scenarios. That's about it. In a group, helpful, or a hero rescue scenario, 1 versus 1s don't tell you much, but for ego purposes of some of the students there, it will benefit them immensely. Izuku would await and wait for his opponent to be picked, and that opponent would be Hitoshi Shinso. They would call out Hitoshi Shinso versus Izuku Midoriya will be the first match of the day. Izuku would walk out and look at Shinso. He hears from the crowd about what his quirk was, and obviously from his classmates about how his quirk works. Izuku would not let him get under his skin. This version of Izuku has been a martial artist, has been someone that knows how to keep his mind under wraps, at least to a certain extent, so Hitoshi Shinso will not be able to easily overtake Izuku's mind. Izuku would await Shinso to spew these nonsensical words, and Izuku would just smile. He wouldn't even say a word as he gets ready for hand-to-hand combat. Shinso would think that he really got him and that this should be easy enough. Shinso should be able to outbox out martial arts this guy, right? God, no. There's a reason why Izuku took martial arts in the first place. He wanted to be able to defend himself. So when Shinso throws an overhand right, it's immediately caught with a straight into an uppercut, and Izuku immediately flips him to the ground as he tosses him out of the ring. Just like that, Izuku puts his hand in his pockets and he stares at Shinso. Your quirk is real strong, but just like me, I realized something. That with my quirk, I wouldn't be able to do things on my own. Ever. If someone came up to me, I might even die. So what I did was, I trained. trained, and then trained some more. Martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, whatever you can think of. That's what I did. Maybe you should look into doing that as well, Shinso. The crowd would go crazy over the fact that Izuku just casually won this fight, and he would await his next fight that is to come. His next fight would be against Shoto Todoroki, someone that has a powerful, insane quirk, and Izuku would walk to the stage ready to go. He would know that there are some instances that would allow himself probably to get ring out if he's not careful. Shoto is someone that is definitely going to be a challenge. But he does know his weakness. He's going to use his ice attack so much to the point that he'll freeze out, slow down, and the fight will be over. Izuku would just activate One for All, dodging as much as possible, and even with big, gigantic amounts of ice that are being used, he'll use one clap. As he does, he swaps places, and Shoto's behind the ice wall himself. Unable to recover from the ice he just used, forced to break it himself, as he looks at Izuku and he's panting, tired. He's already out of this fight. Izuku questions why he no longer or doesn't use his fire. He knows it stabilizes him, so why not use it? Izuku shakes his head, saying that someone like him, someone so gifted, should truly use his entire quirk. But Todoroki refuses, saying that this is not his quirk, this is his father's quirk, that he refuses to use it. But Izuku says otherwise. That's his quirk. There's a reason why he has it. Of course, it's all a matter of perspective though. Izuku explains that they need to use whatever that universe gave them. They gave Todoroki two powerful combinations of quirks. Don't put that to waste. Don't do it because of that hatred. Don't let it control you. Izuku makes this very apparent, saying that this fight isn't even worth it if he doesn't use his fire side. It's not worth it at all. He won't let Todoroki sit here, whine, cry, and complain when everyone else is trying their absolute hardest. Izuku tells him one last time to use his fire side, that it's his damn quirk. And as he does, the stadium erupts. Cheers begin to follow because a blaze of fire rings out on top of Todoroki. Because guess what? Fire and ice has arrived. Izuku smiles as he stares into this insane tunnel vision of a fight. He knows he just made this 10 times harder for himself, but he doesn't care. The fight would continue on, flames and ice going about, as the clash of both of them would be absolutely insane. Izuku would eventually crank One for All up to 100%. One last duel. One last clash. Izuku doesn't care if he shatters every bone in his body. He's going to give it his all. If he doesn't, then he'll just be as bad as what Todoroki was. He smashes his hand into a flame and ice trailblaze of power, and smoke would overlay everything. Cementos and Midnight tried to stop it, but as the smoke clears, well, it looks like they're both out of the ring. Being that Izuku is even stronger and more capable in this regard, on top of that, far less hurt, well, he may have been able to win, but at the same time, the double knockout seems to fit the mold. Todoroki and Izuku stand up, shaken but not stirred, but Todoroki falls back to the ground. Izuku would go over there as he picks him up and he begins to heal Todoroki, and Todoroki asks how he maintains his stamina with all the healing he's been doing. Izuku shakes his head and says he doesn't. He's exhausted and wants a nap. Todoroki would slightly laugh at the fact that Izuku is still able to keep that smile on his face, so similar to that number one hero. Izuku would help Todoroki off, and this would lead, let's be honest, to Bakugou winning the UA Sports Festival. It would suck for Bakugou, but he wouldn't be yelling, he wouldn't be mad, because it was a double ring out. What was he supposed to do? Nothing. He couldn't do anything. Was he mad that he didn't get to have the fight he wanted? Of course, but he'll get it. He'll get it eventually. And in a way, Bakugou has had some character development on that regard. He knows that that fight will come. Is it frustrating? Yes, but at least they both knocked each other out, because that means nobody was holding back. So we can't be mad at that. But nonetheless, it all ends with Bakugou on top, and the UA Sports Festival is over. Now, the real question is, what's next? Where will Izuku go to his agency? He would speak with All Might about where he should go. All Might suggesting somebody that tears him or scares him and makes him terrified, Gran Torino. But the choice is still up to him, because he knows darn well that there's going to be a lot of heroes that want to have him train under, themselves, making them look better and also making him a better hero. Izuku arrives at school to look at where he's gonna go and the choices he has, and those choices are plentiful. Some include Gran Torino. One includes the number 2 hero, Endeavor, and another includes the rabbit hero, someone of high martial arts status and high physical fighting, being that of Mirako. Where will he go? Where should he go? Well, leave suggestions if you want, and you'll have to find out in the next part. Izuku Midoriya has a choice. His choice is between a couple agencies. By a couple, I really mean a ton. But he decides that when it all comes down to the nitty-gritty, he needs training. And who better to go to than the one that trained All Might? Well, Gran Torino. So he decides that he's going to go to Gran Torino's quote-unquote agency, which is not really an agency, it's just, Gran Torino's home. With that said, though, he decides to do this, and he'll have to basically reject everyone else's, which he had some crazy good offers, even some from top pro heroes. Nonetheless, though, after speaking to Aizawa about where he's going to go, and after everything is said and done, he heads off in a car to Gran Torino's place. When he arrives, he knocks on the door, but he sees that it's slightly cracked open. As he pushes it open, the old man is on the ground with ketchup stains as well. But Izuku can obviously tell that he's fine and dandy, so he tells him that he can tell, using his quirk, that there's nothing wrong with him. Gran Torino stands up and kind of laughs, saying that he's a very receptive and smart kid, exactly what he's heard from All Might himself. Let's hope that he's a little bit better than what All Might was when he was younger. Izuku says that he will show Gran Torino exactly what he's made of, and their training would begin. Izuku would begin sparring with Gran Torino, learning more and more about One For All and how to utilize it properly, especially with One For All Full Cowling. Using One For All Full Cowling without the proper training and also just training in general actually has limited full cowling for Izuku. But now, hopefully, while he's been training with Gran Torino, he can increase the usage of full cowling, and on top of that, increase the stability of full cowling itself. So he has some really good training overall ahead of him. He does it from night to day, anything you could possibly think of, and also makes a couple breakfast foods and dinners for Gran Torino, kind of that weird stuff that Gran Torino wants him to do, but that's beyond the point. After some time would pass, though, it would be finally time for some real training, and that's out on the field. The field, Gran Torino and also, Izuku will head over to Hosu City to get some patrols in. This will teach Izuku what it means to truly be a hero. Patrolling around, helping people out, even if it's just so minuscule. Even if it's just getting a cat out of a tree, saving a little child out of a pond, anything you could think of. The pond might not be deep, and the child might be able to just stand up, but that child will look at Izuku forever as a hero, because he was able to help him, save him, and he was compassionate enough to be well, there for a little kid that needed somebody needed somebody at that moment. Izuku hears Gran Torino out and is excited to do what they need to do. Go on to Hosu City, do some patrols, and learn as much as possible. But when he would be on the train to Hosu City, something else would be occurring. Flames would be erupting from Hosu City, and Gran Torino would get a bad feeling. And just as that bad feeling would overwhelm him, a Nomu would smash into the train. Gran Torino would fight off the Nomu, telling Izuku to evacuate everybody here, and then do not go to Hosu City. Actually go and leave. Just get them completely out of the city, get them out of the city limits, and make sure everybody is good. Izuku does just that, but luckily he's able to do that at insane speeds. I mean, frankly, his usage of One For All, his usage of his healing quirk, anything you could think of would be extremely quick, extremely concise, and extremely beneficial. So he'd be able to do it relatively easily. So when he's done, he does head into Hosu City on basically the better wishes of Gran Torino. But he wants to help as much as he can, and when he arrives, he sees many fighting the Nomus, many heroes, and he begins to actually use his healing quirk to power up anybody he possibly can to more or less allow them to defeat Nomus relatively quickly. Even seeing Endeavor, someone who's been destroying these Nomus, he utilizes his own quirk to see how strong Endeavor can truly get, and he power boosts Endeavor. And as he does, Endeavor absolutely obliterates 3 Nomus in just one foul swoop. Endeavor looks at his hands and is in complete shock, as if he thinks that maybe he just unlocked a new ability or something. Izuku runs by and waves toward him, and saying that he thought he could help out, so he gave him a little pick-me-up. In which Endeavor is shocked to see this, because this kid, he's just a kid and he's able to utilize a quirk like that? Yeah, that's insane. Izuku would then begin to sense something around. He meets up with Gran Torino, and Gran Torino tells him to get out of here, but Izuku says that they're in that direction, there's someone that's really in need. Gran Torino shakes his head and says to send the coordinates as soon as possible, that if he needs to go over there, avoid conflict as much as possible as well. So Izuku takes off, sending the coordinates to Gran Torino when he can, and when he arrives at an alleyway. This alleyway has the one and only hero killer Stain, and he has a blade to Tenya Ida's back. Izuku sends information, the coordinates, to not only Gran Torino, but also to a group chat that he currently has. And actually, Shoto Todoroki, is currently nearby. Izuku walks up toward the hero killer and tries to get him to calm down, telling him not to take the life of somebody so young. He might have made a mistake and he might be seeking revenge, but he can change. He's young enough to do so. But the hero killer doesn't believe that to be true at all, thinking that once a horrible hero, always a horrible hero. And that's exactly what Tenya Ida will be when he grows up, and he needs to die right now and right here. Izuku tries to get him to basically change his mind, but of course, there is no changing the mind of the hero killer. The hero killer is about to plunge his sword into Tenya Ida, but Izuku reaches his hand out with the hero killer not knowing, and Tenya Ida is completely healed. He's able to dart off, wearing off the effects of the hero killer's quirk, and he's able to leave. Izuku shakes his head and says that he wanted this to be simple, easy, but obviously this is going to end in a fight, and Izuku will do anything to protect the people around him. He looks to see the hero Native as well on the ground, extremely injured, as he heals him from afar as Native begins to run away. Stain mocks Izuku, saying that these are not real heroes. Your friend Tenya Ida just ran away, and the hero behind him that he just healed also ran away. They're scared, terrified. They don't want to die. Of course they don't, because they're no real heroes. They're nothing like All Might. Izuku is shocked. Nothing like All Might. What are you talking about? The hero killer says that the only true hero is All Might, and he says that there is no if, ands, or buts about it, and that is just a fact. The hero killer says he will now test Izuku right now. The hero killer charges forward toward Izuku as Izuku activates One For All full cowling at about 15%, trying to defend himself and actually keeping up with the hero killer relatively smoothly, but not easily by any means. Izuku dodges, moves in and out as much as possible, using the martial arts combat and anything he's learned, but there is no comparison in terms of the martial arts Stain knows compared to the ones Izuku knows. It's not even close. The martial arts and the fighting style that Stain knows has been sharpened and perfected for decades. At least that's what it feels like. Izuku continues to fight and try to keep up, but nothing can really go his way 100%. But that's fine, because backup has now come. Flames begin to erupt from the outside the alleyway, smashing into Stain as Izuku follows up with a punch to the gut. He looks to see the one and only Shoto Todoroki. He tells Todoroki that they can win this together. And of course, Izuku would be correct, and Shoto believes him as well. Izuku takes the front line as Shoto takes the back line, and as he powers up Shoto on every single attack he possibly can, it's as if he's almost as strong as Endeavor. It's as if Shoto himself his power is overflowing, overwhelming in terms of, well, what he can normally do. The hero killer is overwhelmed, and an iceberg that is even colder, harder, and stronger than ever traps the hero killer from moving even an inch. They trap the hero killer, and they keep him exactly where he needs to be. And the hero killer looks at Izuku. What kind of hero are you? He's shocked to see that some kid like this can do so much. The hero killer could sense that these kids weren't nowhere near as strong as they were. That Tenya Ida kid, how did he just get up and run away? Izuku doesn't say a word, but then says that he's, well, gifted, you could say. But he's also worked extremely hard for a long time. Or at least feels like a very, very long time. More heroes would finally come, and more heroes would eventually capture the hero killer, and Izuku and Todoroki would have to give up the idea that they defeated the hero killer and give the credit to Endeavor. Endeavor has some curiosity though towards Izuku. The fact that Izuku can be this powerful, can make other people this powerful. It's something that piques his curiosity immensely, and something that he wants to see further in the future. But for now, he can't do much about it until those kids get to the level, or basically get to the chance of going off into agencies. Endeavor wants Izuku to be part of his agency, at least as soon as possible, to make him and even Shoto Todoroki that much stronger. With all that said and done, everybody is allowed to leave, and all the internships are wrapped up, and they were sent back to UA. When they arrive at UA, Aizawa begins to explain exactly what's going to occur, not really talking about much of what the reason was for them all to have to be forced back earlier than what they were supposed to. He tells them all that they have a final exam, and that is going to be both written and also a practical. But this practical will be far different than what they would possibly imagine. The students would have no idea, at least not until the very, very end. Because when they study, work hard, and they finish the written, they all think that the practical is going to deal with robots. But of course, it has nothing to do with them. Robots is not practical, but fighting other heroes is very practical. Izuku awaits his turn, awaits to hear who and what they're going to do and who he's going to be going against. Everyone begins to get paired. People like Momo Yaoyorozu and Shoto Todoroki go against Aizawa, and more people are picked to go against a specific teacher or other known as a hero. Eventually, it would lead to both Izuku and Bakugou being left over, in which Bakugou doesn't have that same hatred toward Izuku, but at the same time basically thinks that Izuku still doesn't necessarily deserve to be here, even though he's proved his worth time and time again, but he also doesn't really care about fighting with or against Izuku. After waiting some time, Bakugou and Izuku would be called to be the last team, and it would be against the one and only All Might. All Might would be a challenge that seems to be an insane hurdle to jump over, especially because this All Might is even stronger. Izuku and Bakugou will go head to head with an All Might that is partially, if not fully, healed by now, and, well, they'll take on a Goliath of a challenge. After they await and after they watch all of their friends in Class 1A finish up their own challenges, it's now time for them to take on the #1 hero. When the gates swing open and they enter the city, they see All Might far ahead. It's as if it's the final raid boss that they have to go against. A giant gust of wind would get sent toward them, pressurized air trying to basically push them off guard, but Izuku and Bakugou fly past. They have one chance, one shot at it. Izuku's going to power boost Bakugou and hope for the best that they could keep up with this version of All Might's. But when they clash with All Might, it's abundantly clear that there is no keeping up. Yes, Izuku's gotten stronger. Yes, the power boost of Bakugou, his explosions may be that much stronger. But this All Might may have the last embers of One For All, but he's not restricted nowhere near as much as he would be in canon. So this All Might's, even restricted by weights, would be able to absolutely tear apart Bakugou and also Izuku Midoriya. So they have to come up with a different plan. Utilizing all of their quirks, both Izuku and Bakugou try and make space, try and basically use the environment to their advantage, in which Bakugou makes these giant explosions, making clouds of dust everywhere, hopefully allowing them to both escape. Bakugou whittles it down and basically realizes that he's going to need to escape and there's no other way around it. Bakugou, it has had some growth and knows that All Might would absolutely destroy them, and it seems like he is destroying them overall. So eventually it would lead to a couple cheap shots and also a couple strategies that Bakugou and Izuku would follow through with, allowing them to finally escape the grasp of All Might, escaping just by the skin of their teeth as All Might's about to grab Bakugou as they cross the finish line, or at least cross the escape line. All Might claps it up for them and says that he's really impressed. He knew that they wouldn't necessarily have a chance going 2 versus 1, even with Izuku's quirk. He just is too strong for any of them at this moment, but he tells them that soon they'll even surpass him, that they'll even find a way to get strength beyond that of the #1 hero. And this would allow Izuku and Bakugou to have insane amounts of confidence in themselves and not be annoyed at the fact that they had to just run away, or more like Bakugou wouldn't be annoyed that he had to just run away. With that said though, it's all wrapped up and it's all said and done. What is next is the forest training camp. More training to get them more powerful and get ready for what's ahead, because what's ahead is a battle with the League of Villains, and even further than that, a battle with some crazy villains. All For One is coming, but what is he coming for? Does he want to see the death of All Might? Does he need One For All? Or is he looking for someone else? Is he looking for Izuku and hoping that the power that is within Izuku can push him over the edge? Well, you'll have to find out, because the League of Villains will invade and the forest training camp will be under siege. The forest training camp was an idea that was supposed to go smoothly, bringing UA's finest students to grow in strength, power, and hopefully begin to train at higher heights. But this was not the case. This forest training camp would go real wrong and real fast, because when they would arrive, they would begin their training just like normal. Everything seemed fine, but there was a target on one of the students' backs. Izuku Midoriya was wanted. The villains of the League of Villains wanted him badly, and frankly, there was a multitude of reasons for this. Izuku had a power that the villains wanted so desperately in One For All, but on top of that, had a power that was unimaginable. His healing quirk could allow them to do things that nobody would possibly believe to be true. All For One could be healthy once again. That's all it would take. Izuku had no idea what was truly coming. All for One would send the League of Villains because all he knew was that this kid needed to be captured. A siege on this forest would be upon them, and when they would get invaded, Izuku would try and help as much as possible, even saving the young boy by the name of Koda using a high amount of One for All, or a high amount of One for All full cowling. On top of his healing quirk, he was able to maintain for a long bit of time. But the main issue would come right after, because a sneak attack would happen and Izuku would be grabbed and put in some sort of marble. This marble would put him away and he would be stuck, unable to escape. He would struggle and try his best to leave, to get out of there, but he just couldn't. He just couldn't at all. There was no way for him to truly leave, truly get out of there, and he knew this to be true. There was truly nothing that could be done in the grand scheme of things. Izuku would be scared in a way, fearful, not for his own life, but for whatever they're going to do, they must have a plan to do so, because there must be a reason why he was captured. They wouldn't just capture him for no adequate reason. There has to be a large plan in place. Izuku would be allowed out of that marble, but strapped down to a chair with some stolen bracers that would cancel out quirks. Izuku would look around and he would see that nobody is even watching him at the moment. He tries to break free and do anything he can, but nothing's really working. Izuku's trapped, stuck there. And just as he comes to that conclusion, the villains begin to walk into the room, telling Izuku that there is no way out. There is no escape. He can't use his quirk, and on top of that, there is no beating them at this moment. So he's going to have to listen or die. Of course, Izuku doesn't necessarily want to die, but he begins to kind of just hear out what they have to say. They begin to speak about his quirk, about what he can do, and more. But the question is do they know that he has One for All? Or what do they have him for? But they reveal that they're talking about his quirk that can suddenly bring people back from the dead, heal them, make them stronger than they've ever been before. Izuku believes that maybe they don't know about him having One for All, and that would be the case, but he would sit there and he would listen as they banter on and on about nonsense. They begin to then say that Izuku doesn't have a choice here. He's going to have to heal All for One. Izuku hears this and it's as if an alarm would go off in his head and begin to scream. He can't do that. If he does that, who knows what will happen. All for One has been injured. That fight that he went out All Might with injured him so greatly. It's the same thing with All Might. All Might got injured so greatly. If he heals All for One, they lose their advantage. They lose everything so quickly. Just at a drop of a pen, they would lose everything. Izuku says no, he won't do that, and that they won't kill him either because they need him. There's no threat that they can make, nothing they can do that would force Izuku into that situation, would force Izuku to heal All for One. He sits there stern, making it known that he will not do anything to their bidding. And they say that's unfortunate. That it's really unfortunate. Because, frankly, they weren't going to kill him. They're just going to torture him until he's just a sack of potatoes. But he'll live. He'll be alive. And it'll all start finger by finger. Izuku would sit there as Shigaraki would walk forward toward him, and Izuku would shake his head. He would tell Shigaraki not to dare touch him, that or else some real bad things are going to happen to him. Shigaraki smirks and kind of laughs at this. Izuku is definitely not in a good position. Definitely not. What is he supposed to do? There's very little he can do. Shigaraki goes to grab a finger and tells him that he can stop right now, but it's all up to him. And of course, Izuku doesn't flinch. He tells Shigaraki that he won't help them, that he will not heal All for One, he will not give them an upper hand. Of course, Shigaraki laughs and says that's very ironic, as he melts, absolutely disintegrates one of Izuku's fingers, and Izuku would scream in pain. And Shigaraki says that it's going to get worse and worse as they go on, and asks what he wants next. Another finger? Maybe this time around a toe? Maybe his ear? Maybe one of his eyes? Shigaraki would point at each thing as he begins to speak about it, and he would tell Izuku that there is no way out of this. There is nobody coming to save him. There is nothing he can do. Of course, Izuku would sit there and want to take the pain. He will not do his bidding. And then there goes another finger. Izuku would lose another one. And then there goes a toe. And maybe even an ear. Izuku would begin to lose more and more as the pain would become worse and worse. All he can think about is someone saving him. All he can think about is someone getting there just in time, save him, and then he could heal up. Can he grow back limbs? He doesn't know. But at least the pain will stop, right? It's all he's thinking about, all he's waiting for. But the pain would continue. One after another, Izuku would be screaming in agony. But then after a torture-filled hour of waiting, a knock at the door. Pizza delivery. Weird. Who ordered pizza? The League of Villains would be confused, but just as they are, heroes would come blasting through the wall to save Izuku. Just in time, right? Izuku would see all of them and he would be happy. He would. There would be definitely joy on his face, but he's already gone through so much pain. He's drained, tired. But just as he watches all this happen, the heroes basically knock out all the villains in front of him, and the Izuku is broken from his, well, chains in a way. The limited or the quirk limiters that would more or less not allow him to use his quirk entirely have now been cut, and he begins to heal as much as possible. All of the pain and the suffering would slowly go away, but all those, well, fingers, that ear, and more you could possibly believe that is gone and that got injured is staying that way. He's not growing it back, and there could be a lot of reasons for this. His quirk not being strong enough. Also could be it's a long process for him to get to the point where he can basically allow all those appendages and stuff like that to more or less be healed back. And there could be even more reasons that we just don't know exactly. But many of the heroes that are there would look at Izuku and be terrified. In a way, they did that to a kid. All of that. Many of the heroes there would question why. Why are they even leaving these people alive? This is a child. And they did all this. They tortured him to get the information, to get what they wanted. Tortured. And he didn't even give it up. What kind of willpower does this kid have to not give up information after being tortured? Izuku would be taken away as quick as possible, but just as he's about to be taken away and sent off to a good spot, he's actually engulfed by this weird portal, this goo that would send him off to a new area. All Might would see this and yell no as Izuku would fall through that said portal, and All Might would immediately begin searching for him, but Izuku would appear right in front of the man that they wanted him to heal. All for One. All for One would grab him by the neck, and he would threaten to just take the quirk, use it for himself, but there's a reason why he's not. We all know All for One is extremely hurt, injured, and not in the best position himself. So is this a blatant threat? To an extent, it is. They knew that Izuku couldn't just, or that All For One wouldn't be able to just take his quirk willy-nilly, especially not being at peak performance, especially dealing with everything he's dealing with now. He has so many quirks under his disposal, and on top of that, he's injured to a certain extent. So how is he supposed to, well, take a quirk as strong as his? They don't know it's boosted by One For All or anything like that, but it's a powerful quirk nonetheless, something that could do the opposite of what they want it to do. It could tear his body apart instead of healing it. Yes, this threat may be empty, but Izuku doesn't know it's empty. Izuku looks at him thinking that it's all over, that it's over here. Everything is done, and he's not making a deal with the devil. He's not making a deal with a villain. So he sits there and says to take his quirk then. End his life, whatever he sees fit. Izuku being very, very sturdy in this moment, but just behind that look of Izuku, there's a crying boy, a boy that is terrified, hoping that All Might would come save him. And All Might does. All Might would come in like a torpedo, like a man on a mission, punching All For One in the face so hard he goes crashing into the ground. All Might would grab him and slam him once again into the ground over and over and over again. All Might, someone that is far stronger than he was before. Maybe not at peak performance in terms of when he had One For All, but he's strong, healed up by Izuku. His strength is definitely overwhelming All For One, but All Might is having a different version of a mindset at this moment. All Might is infuriated. All Might just saw his protege ripped to pieces. Just saw his protege refuse to crack under the pressure of being tortured. All For One was the reason why this happened, and All Might doesn't want it to happen ever again. All Might continues to pile drive All For One over and over again, and All For One would taunt him, basically saying that there's nothing he could do, it's all over now. What is he gonna do, send him to prison? That's nothing. There's nothing All Might can do. As everyone watches on, as All Might seems to have All For One defeated, and All For One stands up one last time for a final fight, to use all the quirks he has and try and put down All Might, someone that may be weaker than they last fought, but at the same time still extremely powerful. He's utilizing something that All Might has never utilized before, and that's pure hatred, pure want to end someone's life. All Might begins to think about Nana Shimura, begins to think about his own master, and he almost watched his protege die. All that rage would build up, and the cameras would see something that they've never seen before. All Might would send his hand through All For One's chest like a torpedo, like a cannonball, and All For One would gasp for air. All For One would slowly but surely see his life flash before his eyes. This was not in his calculations. This was not something he foresaw. All Might killing him? That is something he would never have thought of. All For One tries to hang on with whatever quirk he can, trying to engulf himself in some sort of liquid like a portal to get him out of there, but it didn't work. Portal would stop, and All For One would have his body dropped on the ground, lifeless. All Might has been pushed to the edge, and All Might just did something that many heroes and many people would deem criminal: taking someone's life. Izuku would be out of commission, on the ground, out cold, unable to know what just occurred, but All Might would pick him up and take him off to a hospital, somewhere where Izuku can recover and get better. What will happen to All Might? What will happen to the fact that he, All Might himself, just killed All for One? What does this mean for Izuku Midoriya and his future as a hero? Well, you'll have to find out in the next part of What If Deku Had a Healing Quirk. The world just watched All Might, the #1 hero, throw aside his morals and kill All for One. It definitely puts some people, in almost everybody, in an odd mood. All Might, the #1 hero, the one that was sworn to be the best hero, the one that would be the greatest, that is the greatest, one that protects everybody, just ended a life. Some think this was necessary. Many do. Thinking that All for One was horrible, a person that needed to die, someone that needed to go away forever, not in prison, because there was no way he would stay there forever. But many others bring up the idea that it's not their call. It's nobody's call between life or death. It's nobody's at all. So they believe All Might should be imprisoned. All Might is now a villain. Everything he did to sacrifice, everything he did to protect people, it's the moral of keeping that streak going. The fact that you don't ever kill somebody is what matters. In which many begin to argue about this, and while at UA, the conversations would continue and All Might would decide something. Izuku would be in the hospital hearing all of this, getting frustrated, trying to call anybody to speak with All Might, but nothing. Everything is just a cut off, cut dry, nothing is there. All Might would be, unfortunately, cuffed before Izuku could even talk to him, see him. He doesn't even know what's going on. Eventually, days after, All Might gets put in jail. But don't get me wrong, it's no jail that's going to be with all of these hardened criminals. He's in protective custody, of course. But he still would be, his freedom would be taken away, just like he took away the choice for rehabilitation. Would All for One ever rehabilitate? Of course not. We know that. But it is just not All Might's choice to take someone's life. And he decided to do just that. Izuku would eventually catch wind of what happened. Aizawa would explain to him exactly what occurred, and he knew that All Might did kill All for One, but he didn't know that he'd be in prison for it. All Might's done so much for everyone. So much. This rush of anger begins to overwhelm Izuku. Aizawa then says that the doctor has told him that even with his quirk, that his fingers, his ear, his eye will not regenerate. But Izuku wouldn't even listen to this. His anger would overflow, boil over, and the body parts that were said once not going to regenerate would regenerate. But the regeneration factor would do something far different. These fingers would turn this dark black, as if it's just pure, like, magma rock in a way. Pure, just basically blacktop. That's how dark the skin crawled back into his body. So it looks as if he's kind of diseased in a way. His eyeball is black, his fingers, or some of them are black, and his ear is black as well. Luckily, nothing else is wrong with him. He's okay. But it's odd that it came out this color. It's odd that all of this happened in this succession. Rage itself must have boiled over and forced this to happen. The doctors say they want to check out what's going on with him, want to know what happened and how all that occurred, but Izuku doesn't even want to hear it. He wants to leave. He has something set on his mind, and he doesn't want to give that up ever. He even says he wants to speak with All Might as soon as possible, ASAP. In which Aizawa says they just can't do that right now. He'll get a meeting set up as soon as possible, but it's just not going to happen right now. Izuku's frustrated by this, and he's just annoyed. He says to Aizawa that All Might's a hero, someone that protected everybody. And he decided to make a decision. Yeah, maybe it was based off of emotions, but wouldn't you do the same? He points at Aizawa, saying that his student was beaten, battered, destroyed. Wouldn't you do the same? in which Aizawa just stands there in complete shock. Aizawa doesn't want to say a thing because the kid's right. Aizawa would have done the exact same thing. If he had the power to put his hand through All For One's chest, he would have done it. If he was able to kill All For One, he would have done it. Because Izuku is a student, someone that needs to be protected, someone that's supposed to be protected. Aizawa tells Izuku that he doesn't disagree with what All Might did. He doesn't. But society does. That's the problem. Izuku shakes his head and says that maybe there's no reason for him to become a hero then, if heroes get treated in such a way. Someone like All Might who's done everything for this society, and he messes up one time, or supposedly messes up one time, and then this happens? He gets put away in jail? Just like that? Izuku shakes his head and asks Aizawa if he can be left alone for a little bit, in which Aizawa says sure, but the doctors will be coming in to do tests on him to check out exactly what happened and how he regenerated, even beyond his quirk's limitations, in which they do just that. But there's no answer they're going to find. How would they ever find an answer? There's no way. Right? Correct. They would find no way that Izuku would be able to do this or how he was able to do this. But there's a conclusion that Izuku may come to. That's the fact that One For All not only is powering up his healing quirk, but this rage, this feeling that he had and the healing quirk must have combined with One For All. Perfectly put it in sync. And well, the healing factor that he saw, the blackened part of his fingers and his ear, are actually from a different quirk. At least that's an assumption. Maybe there's other people that have different quirks. Quirks that Izuku doesn't know about. Something he should ask All Might, of course. But maybe that's it. Maybe that's a quirk, or part of a quirk that made it look like this, and everything is kind of merging together now. Izuku's trauma and Izuku's action that he's gone through has made something even more powerful. Something that may even limit his life, but at the same time has created a hero that's going to be even greater than All Might. A hero. Izuku shakes his head when he thinks about this. Shakes his head when he talks about this. Hero. Whatever. Days later, Izuku would be able to see All Might once again. He would speak with him through a glass wall. This is horrible. A glass wall for the frickin' #1 hero. That's something, huh? The #1 hero, All Might, has done everything for this city, everything for this country. And this is what he gets. A glass wall. A speaker. And he sits here doing nothing. He may have better amenities than regular prisoners that would be at Tartarus, but he just sits here. No arguments from him. That's how good of a person he is. No struggle, no arguments, no nothing. They don't even have quirk cuffs on him, even with the last tiny bit of One For All he has. They don't even have quirk cuffs on him. There's no cancelization of his quirk. They know that All Might wouldn't do a thing to escape. That's not who he is. That's not who he's ever been. So one mistake really led to this. He begins to speak with All Might, asking about how this all happened, asking why are they keeping him here truly, and All Might says that a hero should never kill. He let his emotions get the best of him, but just as he's saying this, Izuku cuts him off, saying that a hero also doesn't deal with the trauma that he was dealing with. A hero doesn't watch not only his master, but almost his protege die right in front of him. How is he supposed to react? Every other hero would have reacted the same exact way if they had the power All Might had. Of course, this is true. Of course it is. But All Might knew the repercussions, and he's dealing with them now. Izuku shakes his head and then begins to ask another question. He doesn't want to stay on this topic much longer. He doesn't really care for it. He begins to ask All Might about one thing. About the other users of One For All. Their quirks. Of course, All Might has some but limited knowledge of this, and he begins to say as much as possible as he can, and Izuku writes down as much as he can. But he's directed back to Gran Torino. He's going to talk to Gran Torino and figure out anything else he possibly can from here on out. Izuku says that he'll visit All Might here and there as much as possible, but All Might tells him to go and live his life, to not worry about him. That he did this so that Izuku could live his life in peace and live his life without worry, or at least to a certain extent. But Izuku says that All Might has done far more than just that for him. He's given him a realization. He leaves, and All Might is there to ponder what Izuku means by that. As he arrives at Gran Torino's place to speak with him, Gran Torino would know exactly the feeling Izuku's getting, and he would tell Izuku not to do anything too rash, don't do anything too reckless, in which Izuku says that reckless and rash is not something that he'll even be considering throughout this time now. All he wants to know are the other quirks of One For All, the other users of One For All. What did they use? In which an explanation would occur. Everything he knows, and frankly, they would understand, or he would understand most, if not all, the quirks of One For All. Except for, of course, a few that, not many people even know in general. But still, he knows enough, at least enough now, to just go about what he needs to do. There's something that Gran Torino senses, though. He knows, and he can tell that Izuku plans to do something very, very, well, un-All Might-like. But what is he to say? There's nothing Gran Torino can say to make him change his mind, and Izuku won't change his mind. He would arrive back at UA, Izuku, and Izuku would write letters to his classmates, drop them off, and that was it. Those letters would state things that nobody would believe in a lifetime, would state things about One For All and what's going on. He decides that he's going to give the secret away because, frankly, it doesn't matter anymore. All Might's in prison, and his classmates deserve to know the truth. That's until, or before, he goes rogue. Izuku is, well, going to become a vigilante. Izuku decides this off of the pure idea that he knows there's still villains out there that he can handle on his own, that he can deal with. And he doesn't trust the hero society that would put the number one hero, All Might, someone that saved them countless of times, in prison. So he wears that suit, that costume, that same costume that would resemble All Might, at least in his own way. And on top of that, Izuku, right before he finally starts his journey as a vigilante, would be given something. Nobody's there, but this garment that is straight from Gran Torino would be laying on the ground outside. Izuku would pick it up and throw it on, as if Gran Torino's telling him that this is something, a path that Izuku's going to have to follow alone, but he'll still carry a piece of Gran Torino with him along this journey, and there will be respect no matter what. Izuku would follow down the path of a vigilante. He would hunt down the rest of the League of Villains very easily, in fact. He would find them as quick as possible, in which they were trying to more or less speed up the process of getting Shigaraki as strong as possible. But that did not work too well. Not well at all. With One For All completely synced up within Izuku's body, his output of strength is insane. On top of the healing quirk, there is no stopping him. Even top pro heroes refuse to even hunt him down because not only is he extremely powerful, but they believe that he's doing justice. At the end of the day, he's not killing villains. He still isn't. All Might have done it once, but Izuku decides, basically out of respect for All Might, that he won't even do it. He's just knocking him out, and they would just arrive at a police station, cuffed up, wrapped up, whatever you could think of. He's not doing anything wrong. He's so beyond so many of these pro heroes that many believe this to be beneficial. Many believe it to be a positive. And that's definitely the case. It's definitely a positive. After finding and capturing the League of Villains, let's just say it all falls in place. Many of the police force begin to want to look for Izuku. Many of the police force begin to set more or less bounties for Izuku. Basically, they want Izuku brought in as soon as possible, ASAP. They want him brought in prison, because at the end of the day, this is vigilante work. This is not something that should be happening as a hero. A hero wouldn't do this. But even if the other heroes, the top heroes, wanted to bring him in, why would they? There's an obvious excuse of he's too strong for them to really take on. And on top of that, he's done so much already, put so many people behind bars. The League of Villains that were escaped and basically rampant everywhere, or basically around their normal areas, are gone too. All for One is dead because of All Might. There is no, anything bad going on in terms of, the League of Villains. The only issue at this moment, the only issue they have to deal with is Overhaul from the Shiha Zaikai. And these heroes, the top heroes, would begin to think that maybe getting Izuku to help them is truly the way to defeat him. In which a bit of a tip would go off. A tip from actually one of the top heroes by the name of Sir Night-Eye, followed by a young man by the name of Mirio. Mirio Togata would speak with Izuku while Izuku's sitting on a rooftop. They hunted him down and finally found him, but he told them that a fight between them would not be the most beneficial for them, in which Night-Eye agrees. Night-Eye says that he's foreseen so much. Izuku would absolutely defeat them, but that's not why he's here. They're here because they need help. Izuku looks at them funny, and they bring up the fact that Overhaul has a little girl captured under wraps. At least that's what they've seen. At least that's what they've heard. These rumors. Maybe they're utilizing her for another reason. Maybe it's Overhaul's daughter. They're not sure. But at the same time, they're not willing to take any risks. So Night-Eye says that he's going to give some coordinates. These coordinates will be the general location of where Overhaul has been around. Izuku gets the coordinates, and it's simple. Track him down as quick as possible. That's all he wants to do. And he'll know. He'll know if it's a sabotage. He'll know if the heroes try to do something to capture him. He's been getting this weird sense of the surrounding, sense of everything ever since he's felt this connection with One for All. And he just knows. After a while would pass, eventually he would see a little child scamper out of an alleyway. And that, right there, would be his cue. He would dive in, standing right in front of the man that was chasing her. The man would stop in his tracks and look closely at the boy. Stare at Izuku. Izuku staring back at Overhaul, but Overhaul seems to break eye contact. Izuku's eyes itself seem to be terrifying, as if a monster has just stepped in front of him. Overhaul immediately, not even thinking, no talk, just action, immediately uses his quirk, trying to send spikes, trying to send anything, distort the area around him to kill this person, this vigilante. Kill him now. He's freaking out. But Izuku just walks forward, as if nothing around matters. Nothing. Izuku would shatter everything, and the ego of Overhaul would shoot to the ground. You can feel everything around. Overhaul can hear every last little car drive by, feel the sweat dropping from his head. Overhaul would be terrified. Izuku would make him fear him badly. Izuku would step forward as Overhaul wouldn't even stand a chance. Activating One for All at such a high level to the point that Overhaul can't even react. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 punches down. Overhaul is knocked out entirely, tied up in this black substance, which Izuku deems as Black Whip, at least something he's heard about. Maybe that's where his fingers and his ear and his whatever, his eyeball, more or less regenerated from, forming from some sort of black material. At least, maybe. Izuku would cuff him, bring him to a nearby police station, and click a button to signal that Overhaul has been captured to Sir Night-Eye. He would drop off the little girl and even look to see that there's wounds on her. He would wave his hand and he would heal her almost instantaneously as it drains some of his stamina. She would actually crack a little bit of a smile as she looks at Izuku, even though he looks terrifying, scary. It's as if she herself can tell that Izuku's a good person. But before he could even say another word, Izuku would string up on a building and be gone. Just like that. No trace of him. For a while, Izuku would go away. Be gone. Frankly, there's no reason for him to be around. There's rumors that he's off destroying syndicate after syndicate. Even a syndicate of this villain group that many didn't even know existed anymore. Izuku was a true vigilante now. He followed the line that the heroes didn't want to follow. He realized something. The way he is now would benefit everyone so much more than what he would be before. So he continues to follow that path. Every so often he would visit All Might, and many would know he is. But nobody would stop him. Nobody. Not a single soul would stop Izuku Midoriya. He would visit his mother, and there would be police outside waiting. But nobody would even dare try to cuff him. It's as if they knew. They knew Izuku meant so much to this society that he might be a vigilante in all technicality, in all word of definition. But to them, to everyone around, if not most, if not all, he was a hero. He cut down he cut down villain society and tamed hero society when it needed it most. When they saw the number one hero crack under the pressure and kill somebody, end the life of the most ruthless villain ever, and many thought that that was horrible, Izuku took it upon himself to pave the way to a safer future. What does that future look like from here on out? And what does that mean for Izuku? Well, that's a story for another day and another time. And if you enjoyed this series, and if you enjoyed What If Deku Had a Healing Quirk, make sure to show some love by leaving a like, a sub, and a comment down below. All that good stuff. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.